8 years ago, the then Liberal leader, now Prime Minister, promised that he would, quote, make it easier for Canadians to find an affordable place to call home. At the time, the typical house in Canada cost $452,000. What does it cost today?
Mr. Chair, it's an honor to stand here to debate my colleagues. We know that Canadians are facing challenges accessing their dream of home ownership, and we're doing everything that we can to help them get there.
As the housing minister, he'll know about housing prices. As I said, when the Prime Minister promised lower costs, the typical house was $452,000. How much is it today?
Mr. Chair, different prices can be seen in different parts of the country, so I'd like the Leader of the Official Opposition to recognize that fact.
Specifically, I'm looking at the housing price index for the entire country provided by Korea. How much?
The average price of a home in Canada in 2022 was $703,000.
Close, but actually a lot higher than the $452,000 when the Prime Minister promised that he was going to bring housing prices down. Now, back when he made that promise, the minimum down payment on an average house was $22,000. How much is it today?
Average down payments are also regional in nature, and so that's my answer, Mr. Chair.
The national number, please.
The average down payment on a home, again, depends on the region, and those are the numbers that I have. I'm happy to provide them.
Just the national number, please. Thanks.
It's a regional number depending on what part of the country you live in, Mr. Chair.
Right, you can average up the regions and you get the nation. That's what averages do. This is the housing minister. Surely he knows the average necessary minimum down payment on an average house. From the housing minister, can he please provide that basic housing information?
I have provided that information, Mr. Chair.
No, he has not. And if he believes he has, do it again.
I'll do it again by saying that I've provided that information, that it's regional, and I'm happy to provide the regional breakdowns to the leader.
He can't provide the average down payment. I know he doesn't want to, because it shows that since the Prime Minister promised more affordable numbers, the average necessary minimum down payment in Canada has more than doubled, from $22,635 to $47,390. So double the necessary down payment. The minister says regional information is different. Can you name one region where housing is more affordable than it was when the Prime Minister made that promise?
We know that there is a challenge in terms of rising costs of housing. That is why we've implemented a number of policies to enable Canadians to access their dream of home ownership.
He was the one that said that regional data was the most important, so I'll ask him again. Since the Prime Minister promised that housing would be more affordable under his leadership, can he name a single region where it is more affordable?
I can give him the numbers, Mr. Chair. In Halifax, the 2022 average was $541,790, Mr. Chair.
That's more than a 70% increase. So I asked for a region where it's more affordable, even one region.
Happy to provide numbers, Mr. Chair. If the Leader of the Official Opposition wants to keep doing this for the next 5 hours, I'm happy to do that.
He hasn't provided numbers. Let's give him another try. Since he said that housing would be more affordable under his leadership, the Prime Minister, we took office, it was $1,400 for the average mortgage payment in Canada. What is the average mortgage payment in Canada today?
Mr. Speaker, it's pretty rich seeing the Leader of the Official Opposition ask me these questions when he has actually voted against these measures to help Canadians access their dream of home ownership.
And very straightforward. The Prime Minister promised in 2015 that he'd make housing more affordable. Back then, the average mortgage payment needed on a new average house in Canada was $1,400. What is it today?
The Honourable Minister.
59, Mr. Chair.
Actually,
Honourable Leader.
It's $3,149, Mr. Speaker, more than double the amount. And it's incredible that the minister has officials here and he was not able to get the right number. Back when the Prime Minister first promised more affordable housing, in the 10 biggest cities, it cost $1,172 for rent. What is it today?
The we know that rents have gone up, Mr. Chair, and we're doing everything that we can to support renters. But in terms of the average rental rates, again, it's a regional breakdown. I'm happy to provide those numbers.
Ladies and gentlemen, our housing minister. So the answer is $2,200. So what we have is double trouble. The Prime Minister promised housing would be more affordable when he took office. At that time, the average needed minimum down payment was $22,000. It's now risen to $47,000. The average mortgage payment was $1,400. It's now risen to $3,100. The average rent on a two-bedroom was $1,172. It's now risen to $2,227. Double trouble, Mr. Speaker. And speaking of double trouble, that's the headline in a New York Post article, which says, "Double trouble. A house in Canada now costs nearly twice what it costs in the U.S." Can the minister explain why it's more expensive for a house in Canada than it is in the U.S., where they have 10 times the people and a smaller land mass? Why?
Most of the numbers that the leader quoted were wrong, but for someone who has voted against supports for renters, supports for home buyers, supports for building supply, supports for the most vulnerable people in Canada, it's pretty rich to see all these questions coming from him as if he cares about this issue.
I have proudly voted against every single housing policy this government has put forward, which has doubled the cost of housing in this country. So I urge him to remind Canadians that I am in no way associated with anything they have done on housing. The standard home in Canada now costs twice as much as in the U.S. A plan to rein in the stunning boom is a test for both housing markets. So explain, Mr. Speaker, why is it that the average house in Canada costs twice as much as in the United States when they have 10 times the population on a smaller landmass? Why?
Mr. Chair, at least you should explain to Canadians why he votes against measures to increase supply. He's been in this House saying that he cares about more supply, getting rid of gatekeepers, but he's the biggest gatekeeper when it comes to actually investing in measures and investments to create more supply for Canadians.
All right, well, he wants to talk about housing supply. I'll change up here. These data clearly show that the pace of home construction relative to population has declined since 2016, according to Scotiabank. In other words, we actually have fewer houses per capita today than we did in 2016. If his housing plan is so great, why is it that population is growing faster than the supply of housing?
Our population is growing, Mr. Chair, because we have a robust immigration policy, but we also have a growing economy. We have, the issues that the leader points to are issues associated with growth, with low unemployment numbers, with high economic growth and high immigration, skilled people coming to Canada to help us grow our communities and our economy. If he's against that, he should come out and say that.
Housing units per 1,000 Canadians has been falling since 2016 when this government took office, and we have the fewest houses per capita in the G7, even though we have the most land to build on. Why?
We are actually doing something about that, Mr. Chair. We are investing in measures to increase housing supply, but he has voted against that. So he should come out and say and explain to Canadians why he keeps doing that. If he cares about supply, why does he block investments in more supply?
Why? I'm voting against his policies because they don't work.
Yes.
It's very simple. Yeah. They've doubled down payments, doubled mortgage payments, doubled rent, and reduced the number of houses per capita. That's why. So as an example, the median price in Niagara Falls, Canada, is $645,000. The median sale price in Buffalo, 35 minutes away, is $242,000. That is both in Canadian dollars on both sides of the border. Why is it that the house 35 minutes away on the Canadian side of the border costs more than twice as much as the same equivalent house on the American side? Why?
Mr. Chair, the leader can ask all the questions he wants, but this is the fact. He doesn't believe in helping home buyers. He doesn't believe in building more supply. He doesn't have a real plan on housing. He has a half-baked plan built on our real plan that was already in progress from 2017. That's the fact. So we can have this debate. I'm happy to compare our record to his, which is non-existent. He didn't do anything as housing minister, and today he pretends to care about homeowners when he voted against measures to help homeowners.
When I was housing minister, people could afford a home, Mr. Speaker. It's very simple. fact, if you look at the housing on the Canadian side of Niagara Falls versus the American side, very interesting. On the Canadian side, 3047 St. Patrick Avenue, you can get a tiny shack for $549,900. On the American side, you get a much bigger standalone home for $164,000. Wow. $549 on the Canadian side, $164 on the American side, both Niagara Falls. Why the discrepancy, Housing Minister?
Brutal.
He spouts about numbers, he talks about housing affordability, but when it comes to, Mr. Chair, I didn't interrupt the party opposite. I would appreciate if they don't interrupt me. I have the right to respond as I've been asked a question, and it's becoming a routine now. So the fact of the matter is, when it comes to housing supply, he's voted against measures to increase housing supply. When it comes to housing affordability and measures to help home buyers, he's voted against them.
So we've established that on the American side, house prices are roughly half of what they are on the Canadian side. I've asked why multiple times. It can't be population. They have 10 times the people. It can't be land mass. They have less land than we do. The answer is that government gatekeepers block construction. He claims that he's doing something about that, but he has been in this role, and his Prime Minister has been in this job for 8 years. If they were going to solve the problem, they would have by now, but everything is worse. So will the Minister tell us, how much is the cost of red tape and taxes for the average unit of housing in the city of Vancouver? How much?
Chair, you're witnessing the biggest gatekeeper in this House. He has voted against every measure to build more supply, to support home buyers, and to build affordable housing. He talks about the gatekeepers and red tape. Why did he vote against the Housing Accelerator Fund, a $4 billion program to do precisely what the leader just mentioned, which is to help municipalities increase their capacity to build housing of all types for all families and individuals in Canada? Their record is voting against all, somehow doing less on housing and magically hoping that the problem would take care of itself. We are doing everything that we can despite their opposition to everything that we're doing.
Speaker, it costs roughly $600,000 for red tape alone in the city of Vancouver. And what has that minister done as a consequence? Shoveled more billions into the coffers of municipal red tape gatekeepers. Our proposal is precisely the opposite. We will link the number of dollars a big city gets for infrastructure to the number of houses that actually get built. We will require more housing be built to get more infrastructure dollars. We will find gatekeepers who block infrastructure and block housing, Mr. Speaker. We're going to attach dollars to result, remove the gatekeepers, speed up and lower the cost of building permits in order to get it done and to bring it home, Mr. Speaker.